thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. My thoughts do not mean anything. Now let's look at our thoughts. This thought about fill in the blank does not mean anything. And let's do it for a minute. This thought about does not mean anything. Now look at your thoughts. This thought about does not mean anything. This thought about does not mean anything. Thought about does not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. My thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. Well, thank you all so much for joining me for Lesson 10 in A Course in Miracles. We're reading from the Foundation for Inner Peace version this year. Here on Friday, January the 10th of 2025. I'm a few days earlier so I can get it uploaded by the time that you can listen to it on Friday. It's actually Tuesday for me, if that makes any difference to anybody. It's a cold Tuesday. Got down to 11 degrees last night. My thoughts do not mean anything. Here, I'm Forgiveness Willie, teaching forgiveness from the Ozarks. Glad you've come to join me. Lesson 10. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware or become aware in the practice periods. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is that they are not your real thoughts. We've made this distinction before and will do so again. You have no basis for comparison as yet. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. We don't have any basis for comparison yet. But when we do have a basis for comparison, when we start getting a glimpse of our real thoughts, he says that you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. Paragraph 2. This is the second time we've used this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts. I think back lesson 3, 4, 5, something like that. He said these thoughts or my thoughts do not mean anything. Well, that's what today is. These thoughts do not mean anything was the last time we used it. This is the second time we've used this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality of what you think you think. The lack of reality of what we think we think. This aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless, outside rather than within, and then stressed their past rather than their present status. Now we're emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. Remember, when you're thinking about the past or anticipating the future, you're not really thinking about anything. It's meaningless because it's a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. Prerequisite for vision is to recognize that we're not seeing, that our mind's blank, but we want to open it up to the gift of the Holy Spirit. Vision, sight, true sight. Okay, so going on to the next period. Well, let's go take a look at this just a little. The correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless, outside rather than within. Remember, we don't want to relate to our brothers or to God with externals. We want to go inside. And then stress their past rather than their present status. Now we're emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you're not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. Close your eyes with these exercises and introduce them by repeating the idea for today quite slowly to yourself. My thoughts do not mean anything. Then add, after you've said that to yourself quite slowly, then add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. The exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all the thoughts that are available to you without selection or judgment. Try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you are watching an oddly assorted procession going by, which has little, if any, personal meaning to you. I mentioned about that a few days ago, that you just watch your thoughts go by like it was you're standing on the side of the road and a parade's coming by. An oddly sorted procession, he calls it. But just kind of watch them go by. And as each one crosses your mind, say, my thought about, and then name it, does not mean anything. And then go on to the next thought about blank, does not mean anything. And when we're doing it, as we opened, and then we'll do it again when we close, I just hum it when you have an opportunity to name your thought. This thought about it does not mean anything. Well, that's me thinking about what thoughts I'm thinking, and you getting a chance to do the same thing. So you get 2 practice periods just here in this little less than a half hour that we spend together. Today's thoughts can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended, each involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less if you experience discomfort. Well, he's not asking much. Close your eyes for 15 seconds if it's really difficult and say, okay, what am I thinking? And if that's too much, well, then open your eyes in 15 seconds. But try the best to do as he said, which is going to take you probably a little more than 15 seconds. But at least close your eyes and say, my thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. And then look at your thoughts as you say, my thought about blank does not mean anything. Then go on to the next. Do 2 or 3 thoughts, and then close and conclude with, but my thoughts do not mean anything, and open your eyes. He says that today's thought can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. So you can use it during the day. If you start finding a thought that you don't like, you can tell yourself, this thought about whatever's distressing you does not mean anything. But don't let that replace the 5 1-minute practice periods, or a little longer if you can't. 1 minute for me feels like I'm trying to hurry. It usually sometimes takes me a few minutes just to get into the zone where I can do it. He's not telling you have to do that. That's just me. And some of you, maybe multiple year students, might know what I'm talking about and might like to kind of sit in the silence and then do your lesson at a really deeper level. But he's not requiring that. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended, each involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less. If you experience discomfort, remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and also to add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. Okay, well, we'll come and do that again before we close. All right, let's go take a look, and we're starting with Chapter 2 in the text, the Separation and the Atonement, Section 1, the Origins of Separation. To extend is a fundamental aspect of God which He gave to His Son. In the creation, God extended Himself to His creations and imbued them with the same loving will to create. You've not only been fully created, but have also been created perfect. There is no emptiness in you. Because of your likeness to your Creator, you are creative. Remember, we're created in the image of God. No child of God can lose this ability because it is inherent in what he is. But he can use it inappropriately by projecting. The inappropriate use of extension or projection occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth. This process involves the following steps. Okay, so when we start projecting instead of extending, as extend love or project what you don't like. I don't like this, you project it. And you think that somebody else needs to give you something in order so that you feel complete. You're not realizing that you were created without any emptiness in you. But you can have thoughts that can make your reality not real, or what you're experiencing. That's why we're doing this lesson. My thoughts do not mean anything, because we've been stuck in this dream. The inappropriate use of extension or projection occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth. This process involves the following steps. First, you believe that what God created can be changed by your own mind. Second, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. Third, you believe that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself. And fourth, you believe that you can create yourself and that the direction of your own creation is up to you. And that's what he's going to later call the authority problem. You believe that you created yourself and that the direction of your own creation is up to you. Paragraph 2. These related distortions represent a picture of what actually occurred in the separation, or the detour into fear, what he called the fall yesterday. None of this existed before the separation, nor does it actually exist now. Everything God created is like Him. Extension as undertaken by God is similar to the inner radiance that the children of the Father inherit from Him. Its real source is internal. This is as true of the Son as of the Father. In this sense, the creation includes both the creation of the Son by God and the Son's creations when his mind is healed. This requires God's endowment of the Son with free will, because all loving creation is freely given in one continuous line, in which all aspects are of the same order. So God created me, and now I continue the line by creating with my own free will. I extend love instead of project fear. Okay, and there's a lot he's going to say here in the next paragraph, and he has already made reference to some things that are those first 3 chapters in Genesis, particularly chapter 2 and 3. He talks quite a bit about the Garden of Eden, which is in chapter is that chapter 2, verse 8 through 14, I believe. Yeah, Genesis 2, 8 through 14. But I would say just all of chapter 2 and chapter 3 would probably be a good read if you really want to get a deep dive on this. The Garden of Eden, or the pre-separation condition, was a state of mind in which nothing was needed. When Adam listened to the lies of the serpent, that's actually in chapter 3, verse 1 through 24, all he heard was untruth. You do not have to continue to believe what is not true unless you choose to do so. All that can literally disappear in the twinkling of an eye, because it is merely a misperception. What is seen in dreams seems to be very real, yet the Bible says that a deep sleep fell upon Adam, and nowhere is there reference to his waking up. And you can find that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 21 through 23. The world has not yet experienced any comprehensive reawakening or rebirth. Such a rebirth is impossible as long as you continue to project or miscreate. It still remains within you, however, to extend as God extended His Spirit to you. In reality, this is your only choice, because your free will was given you for your joy in creating the perfect. And that's all you can really create, is the perfect. You can make what's not real, but your mind's just blank. You're just dreaming. Okay, paragraph 4. All fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God. Now that's an interesting understanding. All fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God, the authority problem. Of course, you neither can nor have been able to do this. Here is the real basis for your escape from fear. The escape is brought about by your acceptance of the atonement, which enables you to realize that your errors never really occurred. Only after the deep sleep fell upon Adam could he experience nightmares. If a light is suddenly turned on while someone is dreaming a fearful dream, he may initially interpret the light itself as part of the dream and be afraid of it. However, when he awakens, the light is correctly perceived as the release from the dream, which is then no longer accorded reality. This release does not depend on illusions. The knowledge that illuminates not only sets you free, but also shows you clearly that you are free. And the last paragraph for this section, 5. Whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with equal ease. It makes no distinction among misperceptions. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other. Some miracles may seem to be of greater magnitude than others. Some miracles may seem to be of greater magnitude than others, but remember the first principle in this course: there is no order of difficulty in miracles. Well, here's the one you thought was going to be the last one to learn. He puts it first. There's no order of difficulty in miracles. In reality, you are, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. In reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. Isn't that nice to know? In reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of sin, lack of love. These can be from yourself and others, from yourself to others, or from others to you. Peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. Illness is some form of external searching. Wow, catch that. Peace is inside us, and sickness is a result of some form of looking for love in all the wrong places, as Abraham Hicks says it. Illness is some form of external searching. Health is inner peace. It enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without, and capable, through your acceptance of miracles, of correcting the conditions proceeding from lack of love in others. Wow. So it's not just within ourselves, it's within our brothers and sisters that we can see that love manifested through the power of reality, or the miracle, as he calls it. Okay, what's going on around the world today? I found that there is a Jewish celebration called Asarah B'Tevet, which is the 10th of Tevet, or Tevet, the month of in Judaism, or the Hebrew month. What I understand is that the ones that practice that, they fast from sunrise to sunset, or maybe from dark, from the first light to the last light. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, it's Houseplant Appreciation Day. That was the only thing I found as far as any kind of religious holidays, but I did find that there's Houseplant Appreciation Day. My daughter Rebecca has a little set-up nook in our south window with a bunch of houseplants. Looked really nice. I was over there seeing my grandson's birthday the other day, and I always like a lot of plants in a house. So it's nice to see that. Let's see. I found all these on holidays and observances. Cut your energy costs day. And of course, the main thing I like to think of is don't take more than your fair share of the resources on planet Earth. Try to live your life in such a way that you are using your share. You know, if everybody lived like us industrialized Americans live, it would take it'd take more than one planet to fulfill everybody's needs with our present population. So we need to make some alterations and learn to be in more harmony. Anyway, basic line, cut your energy costs day. Let's see, Peculiar People's Day. That'd probably be a lot of us. We're okay being unique, aren't we? Save the Eagles Day. I always like the bald eagles that kind of come around here in the Ozarks. It's let's see if I can pronounce it. The Helenitas is the genus, and the species is Leucocephalus. So that's your bald eagle. And the League of Nations, it was, get the countries together to form, a community of peacekeepers, is the idea of the League of Nations. And then out of sunflower, or out of edible landscaping, we've got the sunflower pawpaw, and it is an Asamina triloba, and it says of the sunflower, Corwin Davis from Bellevue, Michigan, named sunflower from his collection, probably in the 1950s. It's reported to be able to produce fruit planted alone. Now that might be nice if you just wanted one pawpaw. A productive variety with medium-sized fruits, zones 5 through 8, spaced 12-foot circles. So anyway, that's your sunflower pawpaw. Okay, and our word for peace is from Bosnia, and the word is mir. So mir be with you, peace be with you, mir. Okay, now let's take just a moment And well, as we're closing, let's take another 1-minute practice period and tell yourself these thoughts about blank do not mean anything. Or this thought about blank does not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. This thought about fill in the blank does not mean anything. Study your thoughts. This thought about blank, or observe them, does not mean anything. Now let's do a few. This thought about does not mean anything. This thought about does not mean anything. Does not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help release me from all that I now believe. My thoughts do not mean anything. And as they say from Bosnia, mir, peace. My thoughts do not mean anything. Mir.